The Division 2 didn't exactly go to Ubisoft's plan. It started out with good intentions, and I get that, but once again the Division franchise failed to keep its player base invested in the game. Everyone was saying that the Division 2 was going to be so much better than the first one, 10 times better in fact. Yeah, no, that didn't happen. After the first game's initial release, with all the backlash about graphical downgrades and repetitive gameplay, it branded the Division as being a mediocre game. Ubisoft did try and rectify this with its release of the Division 2. Ubisoft promised new environments to explore and not just one big city, and yes, we did see some variation in the Division 2's environment, loot that isn't exclusive to certain modes, and an endgame that would provide new experiences to the player base. Some of these promises we did see in the release of Division 2, but sadly not all of them. The Division 2's loot system is not how Ubisoft described it. Loot is hidden behind PvP walls, and the end-game content just isn't worth enduring. When I played the Division 2's beta, I was adamant to everyone that I knew that the game was going to flop. The gameplay was more tedious than the first game, and certainly ruined the fun of it. And yet, it didn't stop me buying the game. I bought it, I played it, I didn't like it. The Division 2 doesn't hold a candle to its older brother, the Division 1. The Division 2 was structurally better than the Division 1 at launch, the bugs and glitches were practically non-existent, and set up what we all thought was going to be a fun and reliable looter shooter. But damn, was I wrong. The Division 1 did go through a dry spout where after some updates the balancing issues really started to shine through. It decreased the player base on the PC so much that there was only a couple of thousand players left, and all hope was lost for the Division as a franchise. Initial hype for the Division 2 was promising, but quickly declined a month after its release. The Division 1 seemed to hold the viewers and search results for longer, which may be a part of the reason why the Division 1 is in higher regards than the Division 2. After multiple content updates, the Division 1 started to get back on the right track. People were playing it again, and the Division 1 ended up becoming a very enjoyable looter shooter. The Division 2 as of now is certainly a bumpy road, and it may certainly be there for quite some time, as it's been in this state even since launch. Many people were skeptical if Ubisoft had learnt their lesson from the first game, and in some ways they did, and in some ways they didn't. With the Division 2, there is no real reason for completing the Division 2, especially when you already have the gear and the setup that you wanted. The PvE aspect of the Division 2 can only stretch so far when it comes to replayability, especially if you're playing on your own. The enemies being so bullet spongy makes the game feel slow and boring, especially after waves on waves of enemies. The Division 1 had a big focus on the Dark Zone, a space primarily to be used for PvP. I spent many hours in the Dark Zone trying to survive as long as I could, whilst trying to gain new loot that would prove beneficial in a PvP space compared to a PvE space. The Division 2 didn't have as much emphasis put on the Dark Zone this time around when it came to promoting the game. Like, was it done, or were Ubisoft trying to hide things from us? In its current state, the Dark Zone in the Division 2 has had much scrutiny with multiple balancing issues that have plagued the PvP space. It has led to the player base trying to avoid it almost entirely, in favour of other games that revolve around PvP and PvE. This is one of the big reasons the Division 2 failed to entice its players after they'd finished all the PvE content that they wished to do. And that's why so many people have decided to go back to the Division 1, which has both solid PvE modes and PvP modes. This isn't uncommon if a sequel to a franchise doesn't live up to par. The community tends to go back to more beloved entries in the series. People who played Black Ops 4 and disliked aspects of the game went back to Black Ops 3. and people who disliked WWE 2K20 went back to 2K19, so this isn't unusual behaviour. What I'm trying to say is that the Division 2 failed to encapsulate its audience with its PvP and PvE. It always lent one way or the other and has led to its reduction in players. The Division 2 isn't a terrible experience, it's not unplayable, and trust me when I say that, you can still have some measure of fun in the Division 2, but the lack of real fixes and endgame content that grips a player has led it down the hole that it is now in. All we can do is hope that Ubisoft don't keep digging that hole any further, at the risk of losing everything that it tried to rebuild with its second entry into the Division franchise. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, then subscribe and turn on that notification button so you don't miss another upload from me. So thank you, and goodbye.